At my father's second wedding, the badge on my dress said, Housekeeper. His new bride sneered, You're just the help here. No seat, no meal, no spot. My brother snickered, Food's only for family. I lifted my head, removed the family ring and said, Then I'm no longer part of this family. Their smiles dropped instantly. And that was only the start. Imagine this. You're standing in the opulent ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, watching your own father toast his lavish new marriage to 450 of San Francisco's elite. But your name tag doesn't say daughter. It says housekeeper. Then your brother blocks you from the buffet, sneering, Food is for family only. What do you do when your own blood tries to erase you? Do you walk away quietly, or do you burn their entire empire to the ground? Just 3 months ago, that brutal public humiliation at my father's wedding wasn't just a moment of shame. It became the spark, the catalyst, for the most calculated corporate takedown San Francisco had ever seen. See, while they were busy labeling me the help, calling me a lowly housekeeper, I was secretly consolidating control. 40% of their company, quietly acquired through an intricate web of shell corporations. While they were denying me a seat at the family table, I was meticulously preparing to take their seats in the boardroom itself. My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how being called a housekeeper led to me putting my own brother in handcuffs and my father in bankruptcy. Let me paint you a picture. The Sterling Empire. A sprawling $280 million conglomerate, 1,200 employees across 3 states, and a gleaming 45-story tower dominating the San Francisco skyline. My father, Richard Sterling, built it from nothing. Or at least, that's what he loved to remind everyone, at every single opportunity. I graduated from Harvard with my MBA in 2016 with distinction. While my older brother, Alexander, predictably slotted into the family business, I chose a different path. I founded Nexus Advisory. By 2023, my little hobby, as my father so charmingly called it, was handling corporate restructuring for major tech companies, pulling in $45 million in annual revenue. Not bad, right? The first true warning, though? That came at Thanksgiving dinner in 2023. 23 family members, all gathered around the gleaming mahogany table in my father's sprawling Nob Hill mansion. Alexander, my golden boy brother, was, as usual, holding court, bragging about some $50 million acquisition he'd just closed. My father, Richard, raised his glass, his eyes sweeping across the table, conveniently skipping over me. At least Alexander gives me grandchildren, he boomed, and real value to the Sterling name. Some people contribute to legacy. Others just exist on the periphery. It was a dagger. Just 2 days later, an email landed in my inbox. From Alexander, copied to my father and Cassandra, his new fiancée. Stop pretending your little consulting firm matters. It read. You're embarrassing yourself trying to compete with real corporate work. Maybe focus on finding a husband instead. The audacity. What Alexander didn't know was that I'd already secured 8% of Sterling Industries through my first shell company, Evergreen Holdings LLC. Those shares? I bought them from a disgruntled board member my father had ruthlessly pushed out. Eleanor Blackwood was more than happy to sell to an anonymous investor who shared her vision for corporate accountability. This was years in the making. My father had already laughed me out of his office 6 months prior when I tried to propose a joint venture. I'd shown him how Nexus Advisory could save Sterling Industries $30 million through restructuring. He didn't even open my presentation. He just shuffled it into his trash bin. Why would he listen to the disappointment of a daughter, right? Then came the second blow in January 2024. This one completely by accident. I'd stopped by Sterling Industries to drop off a birthday gift for Margaret, my father's secretary. She'd always been decent to me despite everything. While waiting in the executive conference room, I noticed a folder, casually left on the table. Sterling Estate Planning. Confidential. My heart did a little lurch. I knew I shouldn't look, but I did. The new will, dated January 15, 2024, was crystal clear. Alexander, he'd inherit 100% of Sterling Industries shares, all real estate, the family trust valued at $180 million. Cassandra, my father's wife of barely 18 months, would get $30 million in cash, the Napa Vineyard, the Tahoe vacation home. Even Alexander's ex-wife got a mention. A $2 million education trust for their children. My name? It appeared exactly once. In a section boldly titled, Disinheritance Clause. Victoria Sterling, it read, shall receive no portion of the estate as she has chosen to pursue interests contrary to the family's values and has failed to contribute meaningfully to the Sterling legacy. Failed to contribute meaningfully. The words blurred. My hands shook. 8 years. 8 years building my own company, saving a dozen major clients from bankruptcy, providing for 200 employees who depended on me. None of it meaningful enough for Richard Sterling. I carefully photographed every single page, then placed the folder back exactly as I'd found it. That night, sitting alone in my Pacific Heights apartment, staring at those damning photos on my laptop, most people, I guess, would have cried. Maybe confronted their father. Demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I opened another browser tab and logged into my 7th shell company account. If I wasn't family enough to inherit, then I'd simply buy what was never going to be given. The market price for Sterling Industries shares had never looked more reasonable. By February 2024, the stakes weren't just high. They were impossibly clear. Sterling Industries was orchestrating a massive merger with Pinnacle Corp., a $500 million deal that would completely reshape the entire West Coast logistics industry. The announcement was set for March 18th, at the annual shareholders meeting. Alexander, of course, would become CEO of this new combined entity, commanding a company worth nearly $1 billion. But here's what truly kept me awake at night. My company, Nexus Advisory, had 200 employees. 200 people depending on their next paycheck. And 3 of our largest clients, companies worth a combined $300 million, had deep connections to Sterling Industries. One word, just one word from Richard or Alexander, and those contracts would evaporate. They had already proven their vindictive nature. My father's former CFO, Thomas Brennan, dared to start his own firm? Richard made sure he never got a single Fortune 500 client again. And Alexander, I heard him at a Chamber of Commerce event, loud enough for me to catch from across the room. He was holding court with 5 CEOs, all of whom did business with both Sterling Industries and Nexus Advisory. He said, after the merger, we'll make sure certain consultancies never work in this city again. The threat wasn't subtle. It was a declaration of war. Then, February 28th, 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. An encrypted email from Marcus Coleman. Subject line. Urgent. They're destroying evidence. My blood ran cold. Victoria, he wrote. They know I've been documenting the Meridian Holdings transactions. Alexander ordered all physical records destroyed by March 10th, digital. Records are being purged. If you want proof of the embezzlement, we have less than 10 days. The $15 million they stole from employee pensions, it's all going to vanish from the books. I've hidden copies, but if they find out I'm the whistleblower before the 18th, I'm finished. They've already threatened my daughter's scholarship to Stanford. Please tell me you have a plan. A plan? I looked at the sprawling wall of sticky notes in my office, mapping out Sterling Industries' corporate structure, ownership records, voting bylaws. Every detail, every connection. Yes, I had a plan, but it would cost me everything if it failed. March in San Francisco meant 3 things for the Sterling family. My father's wedding to Cassandra on the 15th, the shareholders meeting on the 18th, and exactly 72 hours between them to execute what felt like the impossible. The wedding invitation had arrived in January, printed on paper that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Mr. Richard Sterling and Miss Cassandra Morgan request your presence. The date stared back. Saturday, March 15, 2024, 4 p.m. The Ritz-Carlton, San Francisco. 450 guests. Black tie required. The shareholders meeting notice arrived through official channels. Monday, March 18, 2024, 9 a.m. Sterling Tower, 45th floor boardroom. Agenda. Approval of Pinnacle Corporation merger. The vote that would cement Alexander's rise to absolute, unchallengeable power. 72 hours. That's all I would have. Between watching my family publicly humiliate me one last time, and my chance to finally reveal the truth. 72 hours to coordinate with the legal team, compile ironclad evidence, ensure witnesses were protected, and guarantee the SEC would be present. Most hostile takeovers take months of meticulous planning. I had a single weekend. My phone vibrated. An encrypted message from Eleanor Blackwood. The March 18th vote will reshape everything. Be ready. I've convinced 4 other board members to attend in person. They're expecting fireworks from Alexander's presentation. They have no idea what's really coming. P.S. I heard about the wedding arrangements. Stay strong. Wedding arrangements. Oh, those. I pulled up the email from Cassandra's wedding planner. You'll be in the receiving line as household staff coordinator. Please wear a simple black dress. Nothing that would distract from the wedding party. 3 days. To go from household staff coordinator to the person who would bring down an empire. The timeline was insane. But then again, they'd spent years making me feel insane, making me doubt my own value. It was time to prove them all spectacularly wrong. The dress fitting at Neiman Marcus. March 10th, 5 days before the wedding. Cassandra had insisted all wedding participants attend, though my role was still mysteriously undefined. The moment I walked in, Cassandra announced, loud enough for all her bridesmaids to hear. We don't need you in photos, Victoria. You'll be managing the coat check. Much more suitable for your skill set. Alexander, lounging in a velvet chair, barely glanced up from his phone. Just wear something simple, he drawled, like staff would. Nothing designer. It would look desperate on you anyway. The boutique went silent. 6 bridesmaids, all Cassandra's sorority sisters, pretended not to stare. The saleswoman's smile froze. Of course, I replied, my voice steady. I understand my place perfectly. Richard emerged from the men's fitting area, his new tuxedo impeccable. Do you though? He challenged. Because you keep showing up to family events, acting like you belong at the main table. Don't embarrass us with your presence, Victoria. Blend into the background. Know your place. Cassandra, admiring her $30,000 Vera Wang dress in the mirror, chimed in. You're lucky to even be invited. I held my father's gaze. You're absolutely right, I said. I should know my place. I paused. Let them think they'd won. I'll make sure I'm exactly where I need to be. As I walked out of that boutique, my phone buzzed. A FedEx notification. Package from SEC delivered to your office. Signature confirmed. The Securities and Exchange Commission had received my formal whistleblower complaint. They'd be attending the shareholders' meeting as observers. Alexander and Richard were so focused on putting me in my place, they had no idea I was about to flip the entire damn board. March 12th, 3 days before the wedding. My Pacific Heights apartment had become a full-blown war room. 7 laptop screens blazed, displaying the intricate corporate structures of my shell companies. Evergreen Holdings, Cascade Ventures, Marina Bay Investments, Golden Gate Capital, Presidio Partners, Sunset Holdings, and Bridge Trust. Together, they controlled a staggering 40% of Sterling Industries. The Sterling family meeting votes are about to get very, very interesting, my lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, said, reviewing the stack of share certificates. You've spent 5 years and $47 million acquiring these positions. They never saw it coming because I bought from disgruntled employees, ex-board members, and yes, even Richard's former mistresses. People he'd burned, who were only too happy to sell to an anonymous buyer. The centerpiece of our evidence sat in a locked briefcase. A USB drive from Marcus Coleman, containing 3 years of meticulous forensic accounting. $15 million, siphoned from employee pension funds through Meridian Holdings. A shell company Alexander thought was untraceable. Wire transfers. Canceled checks. Even recorded phone conversations where Alexander brazenly bragged about his creative accounting. Deloitte's forensic team has verified everything, Jennifer confirmed. 3 independent auditors, all willing to testify. The evidence is ironclad. I pulled up the email chain from Eleanor Blackwood, dating all the way back to 2019. She'd been my silent mentor, guiding my share purchases, ensuring I stayed hidden until the perfect moment. Her latest message. I've been waiting 5 years for someone brave enough to expose them. Your father destroyed my husband's company in 2018. Watching his empire crumble from the inside will be poetic justice. My phone rang. It was Marcus Coleman, his voice tight with panic. Alexander's asking questions about who's been buying shares. He knows something's wrong, but he can't figure out what. He's hired investigators. Let him investigate, I replied, staring at my reflection in the dark window. 5 years of planning. Over $40 million invested. Careers and lives at stake. In 6 days, none of his questions would matter. If you've ever felt utterly underestimated by your own family. Now, let me tell you about the wedding day that changed everything. Eleanor Blackwood. The kind of woman who could utterly destroy you with a smile. 15% shareholder of Sterling Industries, widow of Richard's former business partner, and the only person who'd ever made my father visibly nervous. On March 13th, she invited me for tea at the St. Francis Hotel. Your father doesn't know I've been helping you buy shares, she said, stirring her Earl Grey with deliberate precision. 5 years ago, when he orchestrated my husband's bankruptcy, I swore I'd find the right person to take him down. You're that person, Victoria. She slid a manila folder across the polished table. 3 years of damning email exchanges between Richard and Alexander. All forwarded from Sterling Industries' own servers. Timestamps intact. Metadata preserved. Discussions about handling problematic board members. Plans to dilute minority shareholders after the merger. I've been collecting these since 2021, Eleanor explained. Your father made one mistake. He kept me on the board to avoid a lawsuit. That gave me access to everything. Every dirty deal. Every betrayal. Every single crime. Why didn't you act sooner? I asked, my voice low. Because, she smiled, a cold, satisfied glint in her eyes. I needed someone with clean hands. Someone they'd underestimated so completely, they'd never see the attack coming. Besides, revenge is a dish best served at a wedding reception, don't you think? The email headers alone were damning. From Richard Sterling at sterlingindustries.com to Alexander.Sterling at sterlingindustries.com. Subject: Pension reallocation strategy. Date stamps from the company's own exchange server. Impossible to fake. Monday morning, Eleanor said, standing to leave. When you walk into that boardroom, you won't be alone. I've spent 3 years turning board members against them. They just don't know it yet. The next day, March 14th, the night before the wedding. Marcus Coleman looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. We met in a dimly lit parking garage in Soma. He handed me a locked briefcase, his hands visibly shaking. 2,000 pages, he whispered, glancing nervously around us. 3 years of Alexander's fraud, documented in excruciating detail. Canceled checks with his signature. Transferring pension funds to Meridian Holdings. Wire transfers totaling $15 million. Even video recordings from security cameras, showing him accessing the pension accounts after hours. I opened the briefcase. The sheer volume of evidence was overwhelming. Each document had been notarized, backed up in 5 separate locations, including 2 safety deposit boxes and 3 cloud servers. The crown jewel? A recorded Zoom call from December 2023, where Alexander explicitly told his personal banker to make the pension money disappear into Meridian before the audit. These documents are notarized and backed up in 5 locations, Marcus confirmed again. My lawyer has copies. The FBI has been notified, but they agreed to wait until after Monday's meeting to act. Alexander, he added, was still scrambling, investigating who'd been buying shares. He had no idea about this. A text interrupted us from Alexander. Strange market activity in our shares. Someone's been accumulating. Find out who. Marcus went pale. He's getting paranoid. Yesterday, Marcus continued. He asked why I'd been staying late so often in 2023. After Monday, I assured him, my voice firm. His paranoia won't matter. Your daughter's Stanford scholarship? Eleanor Blackwood personally guaranteed it. Full ride. He managed a weak smile. You know what the ironic part is? Marcus said. Alexander taught me everything about forensic accounting. He created his own destroyer. I locked the briefcase. $15 million, stolen from hardworking employees' retirements. Monday morning, Alexander would discover that every single transaction had been meticulously documented by the very person he'd trained to hide them. These documents, I promised Marcus, will be projected on a 100-inch screen, in front of the entire board. His victims will get justice. March 15, 2024. The Ritz-Carlton, San Francisco, gleamed under perfect spring sunshine. 450 guests in designer clothing streamed through the opulent lobby. CEOs, senators, federal judges, the entire West Coast elite, all gathered to celebrate Richard Sterling's second chance at happiness. My name tag was waiting at the registration table, in elegant calligraphy. Victoria Housekeeper. Not Victoria Sterling. Not daughter of the groom. Just Victoria Housekeeper. The wedding coordinator, a nervous woman named Patricia, couldn't meet my eyes. Mrs. Morgan Sterling specifically requested this arrangement. You're to stand by the service entrance during the ceremony. No assigned seating for the reception. The ceremony space held 450 gilded chairs facing an altar drowning in white orchids. Every chair had a name card. Except for the corner where I was directed to stand. 3 other servers joined me there, all of us in black, invisible against the dark draping. Richard walked past during his grand entrance, his eyes sliding over me like I was furniture. Cassandra followed in her $30,000 dress, pausing just long enough to stage whisper to her maid of honor, "Staff should stay in the service area. We don't want any confusion about who belongs here." The CEO of Terrera Link Corporation stood 3 feet away. The federal judge who'd overseen Sterling Industries' biggest lawsuit sat in the front row. The publisher of the San Francisco Chronicle took photos. All of them witnessed Cassandra's casual cruelty. Several shifted uncomfortably during the vows. As Richard promised to honor and cherish, I felt my phone vibrate. Eleanor Blackwood, seated elegantly in the 3rd row, had sent a photo of my name tag with the simple caption, "Evidence collected." The reception was even worse. 450 exquisite place settings at crystal-laden tables. Still no seat for me. When I approached the buffet, Alexander materialized, blocking my path. "Food is for family only," he laughed, loud enough for 3 nearby tables to hear. "Honestly, Victoria, know your place." That's when something shifted inside me. It didn't break. It crystallized. Years of accepting their contempt, years of hoping for recognition that would never come. It all ended in that single searing moment. I stood straighter, looked Alexander directly in the eyes, and smiled. A real smile. Because I knew something he didn't. In 72 hours, he'd be in handcuffs. The true moment arrived during Richard's toast. He stood at the head table, champagne flute raised, Cassandra glowing beside him. 450 faces turned toward them as he began his speech about family, legacy, and the people who truly matter. "Family," Richard declared, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "is about contribution. It's about adding value. Some people," his eyes found me standing by the service door, "simply exist on the periphery, never quite measuring up. But today we celebrate those who do." The room applauded. Alexander raised his glass toward me with a mocking salute. Cassandra's friends tittered behind manicured hands. I walked forward, every step deliberate. Crossing the entire ballroom, conversations died. Forks stopped moving. Richard's smile faltered as I approached the head table. I reached up and slowly removed the family ring. My grandmother's ring. The one she'd given me before she died. The last person in that family who'd ever truly believed in me. I set it on the table in front of Richard with a soft clink. "Family," I said, my voice carrying with the same chilling clarity as his toast. "If I'm just staff, then you're just another company to take over." Richard's face went white. Alexander started to stand, but I was already walking away. 450 members of San Francisco's elite watched me leave. Through the main entrance. Not the service door. The whispers started before I even reached the lobby. In the parking lot, I pulled out my phone and typed 5 words to Jennifer Walsh. "Execute Project Revelation. Full acceleration." Her response was immediate. "Understood. SEC notified. Deloitte's team activated. Board members confirmed for Monday. All systems go." I sat in my Tesla, looking back at the glowing ballroom windows. They were probably still laughing about my dramatic exit, turning it into another story about unstable Victoria. Let them laugh. They had exactly 71 hours and 23 minutes left of their empire. The next 48 hours blurred into a symphony of precision planning. My apartment became command central for the most carefully orchestrated corporate takedown in San Francisco history. From Saturday night through Monday dawn, Jennifer Walsh and her team of 12 lawyers worked in relentless shifts, preparing SEC filings, shareholder notifications, and cease and desist orders. Every single document had to be perfect. One procedural error, and Alexander's army of lawyers would tear us apart. Sunday, 2 p.m. Deloitte's forensic accounting team delivered their preliminary report. The embezzlement is worse than we thought, the lead auditor said grimly. It's not just $15 million. There's another $8 million hidden in offshore accounts. $23 million total. Sunday 6 p.m. The SEC confirmed their attendance. James Mitchell, a senior investigator, would personally observe Monday's meeting. We've opened a formal investigation based on your whistleblower complaint, he confirmed. If your evidence holds, we'll make arrests on site. Sunday, 11 p.m. 17 of the 23 board members confirmed they'd attend in person instead of calling in. Eleanor had done her work beautifully. They smelled blood in the water. Monday, 3 a.m. sleep was impossible. I stood at my window watching the city lights, holding the small USB drive that would utterly destroy Alexander. I'd started planning this moment 6 months ago, but really they'd been planning it for me for years. Every dismissive comment, every public humiliation, every reminder that I wasn't good enough. Monday, 6 a.m. Final confirmation from Marcus Coleman. I'm in the building. All original documents are in the boardroom safe. Alexander has no idea. Monday, 7 a.m. I put on my best suit, Armani charcoal gray, the one I'd worn to close my biggest client deal. In 2 hours, the Sterling Empire would face its reckoning. Can you even imagine the look on their faces? March 18, 2024, 9 a.m. Sterling Tower's 45th floor boardroom. It was Alexander's kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. A mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's houses. And a massive 100-inch presentation screen where he was proudly displaying his merger masterpiece. The Pinnacle acquisition will position us as the dominant force in West Coast logistics, Alexander proclaimed to the assembled board. 23 board members, 5 executive VPs, a handful of nervous assistants. The room was packed. Then the double doors swung open. I walked in, flanked by 5 lawyers from Walsh & Associates, each carrying briefcases that might as well have been loaded weapons. The room went absolutely silent. Alexander's laser pointer clattered to the marble floor, forgotten. What the hell are you doing here? Richard roared, already on his feet, his face turning an alarming shade of red. This is a closed session. Security. I'm here, I announced, my voice cutting through the tension, as the designated representative of 40% of Sterling Industries shareholders. Jennifer Walsh stepped forward, documentation in hand. According to Section 7.3 of your corporate bylaws, any shareholder group controlling more than 25% can demand immediate board attention. With a silent cue, the massive 100-inch screen behind Alexander changed. My legal team had taken control of the presentation system. Suddenly, the complex ownership structure of Sterling Industries filled the screen. 7 shell companies, all leading back to one name, Victoria Sterling. That's impossible, Alexander stammered, his bravado crumbling. You don't have Evergreen Holdings, 8%, Cascade Ventures, 7%, Marina Bay Investments, 6%. Should I continue? I asked, moving to the center of the room, my heels clicking with metronomic precision on the marble. 40% total ownership, accumulated over 5 years, from shareholders who were tired of the Sterling family's mismanagement. Eleanor Blackwood slowly stood up, a deep, satisfied smile playing on her lips. I motioned. I moved to pause the merger discussion and address this new stakeholder concern. Seconded, came from Thomas Chun, then Thomas Whitman, and 2 other board members. Eleanor had truly turned them. Richard couldn't speak. He just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish, as his empire's control structure publicly crumbled on the screen for everyone to see. But the best part? I wasn't done. Not even close. Good morning, board members, I said, taking my place at the presentation podium. I believe you know me as the Housekeeper. I clicked to the next slide. Before we discuss the merger, the board needs to address a more pressing matter. $23 million. Missing from employee pension funds. The screen exploded with evidence. 47 slides of meticulously documented fraud. Canceled checks with Alexander's signature. Wire transfer confirmations to Meridian Holdings. Bank statements showing the systematic draining of retirement accounts. This is fabricated. Alexander shouted, but his voice cracked. You can't just. Every document has been authenticated by 3 independent sources, Jennifer Walsh interrupted, her voice calm but firm. Deloitte's forensic team spent 2 weeks verifying each transaction. Mr. Coleman, our forensic accountant, can attest to their authenticity. Marcus stood up from his seat in the corner, holding original documents. I've been documenting this fraud for 3 years. Every transfer, every forged authorization, every deleted email. I have copies. The room erupted. Board members shouted questions. Richard slammed his fist on the table, but I kept clicking through the slides, each one more damning than the last. Slide 23. An email from Alexander to his personal banker, subject line, pension reallocation complete. Slide 31. Security footage of Alexander accessing pension systems at 2 a.m., outside normal procedures. Slide 39. The smoking gun. A recorded Zoom call where Alexander explicitly discussed hiding the stolen funds. This is a legal recording. Alexander protested, desperately. You can't use. Actually, James Mitchell said, stepping forward, his EDI badge gleaming. We can. I'm James Mitchell, Securities and Exchange Commission. We've been investigating Sterling Industries for 6 months, based on Miss Sterling's whistleblower complaint. This evidence has been submitted to federal prosecutors. The color drained from Alexander's face as 2 FBI agents entered the boardroom. They'd been waiting in the hallway. Every document has been authenticated by 3 independent sources. I repeated, my voice steady as granite. The theft is undeniable. The evidence is overwhelming. And the consequences are inevitable. Richard finally found his voice. Victoria, you don't understand what you're doing. You're destroying your own family. No, I corrected him, looking him dead in the eyes. I'm protecting 1,200 employees whose retirements you stole. Family doesn't do what you did. The FBI agents moved toward Alexander with practiced efficiency. Alexander Sterling, one of them, stated, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and violation of ERISA pension regulations. Dad. Alexander looked desperately at Richard. Do something. But Richard couldn't even stand. He slumped back in his chair as the agents cuffed his son in front of the entire board. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through the silent boardroom. This is insane. Alexander struggled against the agents. It's a setup. She's lying. James Mitchell from the SEC pulled up his tablet. Mr. Sterling, we have your signed confession from December's recorded call. You explicitly stated, and I quote, make the pension money disappear into Meridian before the audit. Would you like to hear the recording? Over the conference phone, Cassandra's voice crackled through. Richard, what's happening? The news is saying Alexander was arrested. Eleanor Blackwood stood up. I motion for an immediate vote of no confidence in Richard Sterling as CEO and chairman. Seconded. Came from 4 board members simultaneously. The vote was swift and brutal. 18 for removal. 3 against. 2 abstaining. Richard Sterling, the man who'd built an empire from nothing, was stripped of his power in less than 60 seconds. Furthermore, Eleanor continued, I nominate Victoria Sterling for an independent board seat, effective immediately. This time the vote was 18-5 in favor. Trading had been halted 20 minutes ago, when news of the FBI's presence hit the wire. Sterling Industries stock was in freefall. The merger with Pinnacle was dead. Everything Richard and Alexander had worked toward for the past year evaporated in the span of a single morning. The Housekeeper motion passes, Eleanor announced with undisguised satisfaction. Meeting adjourned. As the FBI let Alexander out, he turned back one last time. You destroyed us. Your own family. No, I replied, gathering my papers with steady hands. You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone could see it. Richard remained frozen in his chair as board members filed out, most avoiding eye contact with him. His empire, his legacy, his carefully crafted reputation, all of it lay in ruins around him. The housekeeper had cleaned house. The legal dominoes fell fast and hard. Within 3 hours of Alexander's arrest, federal prosecutors unsealed a 47-count indictment. Securities fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy, and violation of pension protection laws. Each charge carried potential decades in prison. Alexander Sterling faces a minimum of 15 years if convicted on even half these counts, the lead prosecutor announced at an impromptu press conference outside Sterling Tower. This represents one of the largest pension fraud cases in California history. Sterling Industries faced its own reckoning. The SEC imposed an immediate $75 million fine for failing to maintain proper oversight. The Department of Labor launched a separate investigation. 3 class action lawsuits were filed before markets even closed, seeking damages exceeding $200 million. But I wasn't interested in revenge theater. That afternoon, I sat with Jennifer Walsh and Sterling Industries' interim CEO to structure the solution. Every penny stolen from the pension fund will be restored, I stated, my voice unwavering. Full restitution plus interest, paid from the company reserves and Alexander's frozen assets. That's nearly $30 million with penalties and interest, the interim CEO protested. Then Sterling Industries better find it, I replied. Those employees worked their entire careers for that money. Richard, stripped of his titles but still technically a shareholder, had to watch as his personal assets were frozen pending investigation. The Nob Hill mansion, the yacht, the priceless art collection, all potentially subject to seizure if he was found complicit. By 5 p.m., the pension fund had received its first emergency restoration payment of $10 million. The remaining amount would be paid within 90 days, supervised by federal monitors. Justice isn't revenge, I told the employee committee who'd gathered in the lobby, tears in their eyes. It's accountability. Your retirements are safe. That's all that really mattered. Marcus Coleman pulled me aside afterward. They offered me chief financial officer, he said, still seeming stunned. The board wants someone they can trust. You've earned it, I replied, a genuine smile forming. He nodded, then asked quietly, what about you? You could be CEO. The board would support it. No, I said firmly. I don't want their empire. I just wanted my dignity back. The personal aftermath? Swift. Merciless. Cassandra filed for divorce within 48 hours, but her prenuptial agreement was ironclad. She'd get nothing from the frozen assets. The wedding that had cost $500,000 became the most expensive humiliation in San Francisco social history. I didn't know about any fraud, she sobbed to reporters outside her lawyer's office, her designer sunglasses failing to hide her puffy eyes. I'm a victim too. But the prenup Richard had insisted on, to protect his family wealth, now protected him from her. She'd receive only what she'd brought to the marriage, debt from her failed modeling agency, and a reputation in tatters. Alexander's situation grew worse daily. His wife filed for sole custody of their children. His country club membership was revoked. His name was removed from every charity board in the city. The golden boy who'd had everything handed to him now sat in federal detention, bail denied as a flight risk. And Richard? He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 days. Alone in his mansion, staff dismissed, accounts frozen, awaiting potential charges. He became a ghost in his own life. The society invitations stopped. The phone stopped ringing. The man who'd once commanded rooms full of CEOs couldn't even get a returned call. I received a letter from him, delivered by courier. Victoria, it read. I know you won't respond, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I see now what I refused to see before. You were the only one with real strength, real intelligence, real integrity. I was so blinded by my own prejudices that I pushed away the only child who truly inherited my business acumen. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I filed it with my lawyer unanswered. Apologies without change are just manipulation. Alexander's letter from federal detention was shorter, but no less manipulative. Sister, he wrote, we both know this has gone too far. If you recant your testimony, say you were mistaken about some details, I could get minimum security, maybe even probation. We're family, Victoria. Family forgives. That one I kept. As evidence of a continued criminal mindset, useful for the prosecution. Cassandra, of all people, tried Instagram. Daily messages about girl power and supporting each other through tough times. She even tagged me in a post about women in business inspiring each other. The woman who'd literally labeled me a housekeeper now wanted to be inspiration buddies. But the most surprising contact came through certified mail. A letter from my mother's sister in Boston, whom I hadn't heard from in 15 years. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen. My mother holding infant me with a handwritten note on the back. My brilliant daughter will change the world. Below the photo my aunt had written, "Your mother saw this coming. Before she died, she told me Richard would try to diminish you because your light would expose his darkness. She made me promise to send this when you finally stood up to him. She'd be so proud." That letter? That one I kept. The rest went into a folder labeled "No response necessary," which my lawyer maintained. I had no interest in being manipulated anymore. Setting boundaries after a lifetime of accepting disrespect required surgical precision. Jennifer Walsh helped me draft the protocols that would govern any future contact with the Sterling family. All communication must go through legal counsel, the document stated. No direct contact via phone, email, social media, or in person. Any attempt at direct contact will be considered harassment and met with appropriate legal action. I blocked Richard, Alexander, and Cassandra on every platform. Their phone numbers, email addresses, even their lawyers' paralegals, all filtered straight to Jennifer's firm. The wall between us wasn't built from anger, no. It was built from self-preservation. A restraining order against Cassandra became necessary when she showed up at my office building 3 times in 1 week, tearfully telling security she was my stepmother, and there was a family emergency. Security camera footage of her performances went straight to the court. Therapy. Therapy helped me process the trauma I'd normalized for years. "You were never alone in this, Victoria," my therapist, Dr. Martinez, would say. "You just needed to find your people." It was the most basic form of self-care. I established new rules for my life. No meetings with anyone who'd witnessed my humiliation and stayed silent, unless it was strictly business. No friendly coffees to catch up with people who'd enabled the abuse. No obligation to forgive just because society expected it. Family isn't DNA, I told Dr. Martinez. It's respect, loyalty, and love. I've learned that chosen family, the people who saw my worth when I couldn't, matter more than blood relations who tried to break me. The boundaries extended to my company, too. Nexus Advisory would never work with Sterling Industries, while any Sterling family member remained involved. We had standards now, and those standards included not enabling abusers, even reformed ones. Some called me cold. Others said I was unforgiving. But for the first time in my life I felt safe, protected, valued. The boundaries weren't walls keeping others out. They were foundations keeping me stable. By September 2024, just 6 months after the boardroom coup, Nexus Advisory's valuation soared to $500 million. We announced our IPO with Goldman Sachs as lead underwriter. That hobby business that didn't matter? It was about to go public at a valuation that exceeded Sterling Industries' current market cap. I also established the Sterling Foundation, deliberately using the name with $50 million of my own money. Its mission: providing full-ride MBA scholarships for women who'd been told they weren't good enough. The first recipient? Marcus Coleman's daughter, who'd almost lost her Stanford spot because of Alexander's threats. My engagement to David Chun happened quietly. He'd been there through everything, never trying to fix or save me, just standing beside me as I saved myself. He proposed not with fanfare but with a simple, "Will you be my partner?" My answer was an immediate, joyful yes. The chosen family I'd built became my real family. Eleanor Blackwood, my unofficial mentor. Marcus Coleman, the brother I should have had. Jennifer Walsh, the protector I'd needed. My employees at Nexus, who trusted me when I barely trusted myself. We gathered for Thanksgiving 2024 at my new Marin County home. Not a mansion, no, but a place filled with warmth, laughter, and genuine connection. 23 people who'd earned their seats at my table through loyalty and love. Not blood. Not obligation. Success is the best revenge. I toasted, looking at the faces of people who actually cared about me. But peace is the ultimate victory. David raised his glass. To Victoria, who showed us that sometimes the best way to clean house is to build a better one. The laughter that followed was real, unmarred by hidden contempt or conditional acceptance. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Looking back now, months after that wedding where they labeled me a housekeeper, I don't feel anger anymore. Just clarity. I spent 32 years trying to earn a love that was never available, respect that was conditionally withheld, a place at a table that was always just out of reach. The sterling silver spoon I was supposedly born with turned out to be stainless steel. Functional, but never quite good enough for the sterling standard. But here's what Richard and Alexander never understood. Stainless steel doesn't tarnish. It doesn't need constant polishing to maintain its value. It's strong, practical, and resilient. Just like the daughter and sister they threw away. The empire they built on ego and embezzlement crumbled in a single morning. The legacy they killed themselves protecting evaporated the moment handcuffs clicked. The family name they valued above actual family became synonymous with corporate fraud. Meanwhile, I built something real. A company based on integrity, relationships rooted in respect. A life where my worth isn't determined by those who refuse to see it. Your worth isn't determined by those who refuse to see it. I tell this to every scholarship recipient, every young woman who comes to me with stories of being overlooked, undervalued, dismissed. Your worth exists whether they acknowledge it or not. That family ring I returned to Richard that day? He tried to send it back through his lawyer, claiming it was rightfully mine as the eldest daughter. I had it auctioned for charity. It raised $30,000 for a women's shelter. That ring had been in the Sterling family for 4 generations, but it took leaving the family to finally do some good. I'm Victoria Sterling. I'm the housekeeper who cleaned house, and I've never been more proud of my name. Not because of who gave it to me, but because of what I made it mean. This story, my journey, it's deeply personal. But I know I'm not the only one who's faced betrayal or been underestimated. What about you? Have you ever had to fight for your worth? Or build your own table when others tried to kick you away? Tell me your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you think down in the comments below.